It's time for Cadillac Unscripted on 107.9 CDY. It is sponsored by Independent Bank and our friend Marianne Quist of Remax Central. And I think we have a new record tire for the most number of appearances on Cadillac Unscripted.
That's
with
right.
Jennifer Brown.
Ooh.
We have back for the third time with us our friend Mike Kelso, Executive Director of the Cadillac Area YMCA.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'll have to tell Jenna we're rivals in that.
That's right. Media hounds.
Well,
everybody's after you too.
You both have had lots to talk about recently.
Yes.
Well, and you both are doing such important, critical work in the community.
Right.
Strong leaders. And one of the reasons we wanted Mike on the show today, Rich, what has become one of the biggest events in Cadillac is Dancing with the Y Stars. Every year, it brings back more and more people. It brings excitement and sort of Hollywood, if you will, to Cadillac.
And every year, Katy has to go dress shopping for the occasion.
I do, yes. Dan Alto.
As an MC, yep.
Yeah, and Dan Alto has to go tux shopping. Oh yes, and it's like prom. It's like, so what color's your tie going to be? Like that kind of thing. Anyway, with COVID-19, so many modifications have been made at the Y, and just so proud of Mike and his leadership team for keeping the Y open and accessible to the community. But Mike, Dancing with the Y Stars is taking on an entirely different look this year. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so about when COVID hit in March was about when our planning committee was to meet to plan the typical event, and we had to put the brakes on, and we held out hope for a while, and then it became obvious about July or August we can't pull this thing off in its typical form.
Right.
In August. So
It's got to look different. And
Yes.
real quick, just because I want our listeners to know what a U-Edge fundraiser this is, what do you typically net?
Yeah, so the last several years it's been between $40,000 and $60,000, which is a good chunk of our fundraising effort for the year. It puts 27 volunteers who are just part of the dancing group, let alone Katy and Dan and the behind the scenes people, and puts 700 people in the room to have just a wonderful party, get together, see some great performances, hear the mission of the Y in an audience, that we have captive for that night.
Yes.
And throw down some big donations. So it's tough to lose the big event of gathering, but our committee came together in August, and we bounced around a few ideas, some that we hit some roadblocks on, but we've settled on something that is making lemonade out of the lemon of 2020 that it is.
There you go.
But we think it'll be fun, and it will be pretty exciting and deliver some of what we typically do. So
Okay, well, what does it look like?
So it's going to be a social media campaign.
Okay.
So it's not a live event, but essentially, and it's still going to be dance themed, we're going to have individual dancers. So we're calling it Dance with Myself this year. Think the David Bowie song from the 80s.
Dancing with Myself.
That was Billy Idol, actually.
Billy Idol,
that did that song.
David
Yeah.
Bowie.
There you go.
Sorry.
Hey, very close. Blonde guys,
Yes, from the 80s with hair.
The hair, yeah.
So Dancing by Myself, and we're recruiting dancers right now to do an individual TikTok 30, 45 second video.
Oh, of course.
You are going to get so many people to do this.
Yep.
Yes.
Produced with some lead-in graphics and a little sponsor recognition on the end and a little Y mission story. But then we're going to release those all over a week on our social media channels, and then have the dancers share them on their pages, try to create some local viral sharing. And the voting will still be very similar with it's $5 a vote and direct to our webpage. You always had that for the pre-vote.
I remember that.
We're still going to have that element. So each dancer will have a page with their picture and a bio, and then we'll populate their videos there throughout the week that we release them all. And they can try to share, get their friends, supporters to go support them and support the Y by voting and donating. So.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I know your board and your committee has talked about this, but in a perfect world, you would raise how much with this?
A part of me says, "Gosh, we're not going to raise $50,000," but you know what? Hope for a miracle, and maybe you'll get one.
There you go.
So we're using the big beast that is social media, so trying to take advantage of that and the viral nature that you can create.
Well, and folks that aren't local now.
Yeah.
When you say viral, this could go all over the world.
Yep. Cousin Joe, who grew up in Cadillac, but maybe has moved to Texas, might see, somebody he knows and jump in and support that. It would be great if we hit that number. We probably won't, just with, it's not the big party. We're not having the big show.
Right.
But anything we can do at this point, just to have our presence in the fall like we do what people kind of expect of us. with a dance type event, and hopefully also tell our story of what's been going on the last 6 months and what the Y's done,
right.
And mix that in there as well, and create just some fun, cool videos with some people locally that probably get a little silly, and we like to say, "Oh my gosh, did you see what Rich did yesterday?" Right? And then you
got to get on there and see that.
Yeah, exactly. So.
I chuckle because Rich, these dancers are so committed, and every year, and they get so competitive with one another. They want that mirror ball, and I have friends that have them on their mantle, and it truly is a highlight in their life. A builder friend of mine, Jason Burton, won a few years ago, and I chuckled because I called him on business, and he answered the phone and said, "Future champion of Dancing with the Y Stars, 2009." I said to him, "Well, you're talking some smack on this, So he ended up winning.
This was before he knew he was going to compete?
Oh, no, he knew he was competing,
he knew it was
but
coming up.
He was in it to win it.
Right.
And then one of our favorite guests on the show, too, Pat Goggin, I chuckle because Pat would tell you he's not the most athletic person. He's more of an intellectual. He's into boats, director of the United Way here in town. Alicia Elmore, Dr. Elmore, was his partner, and they won. Mm-hmm. So, you see people that take on a totally different role, and the joy that the event brings to their life and the memories that it makes, and new friends are made.
Yeah.
The dancers become friends with one another.
The choreographers.
And yes.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's all that coming together in that way is usually just a great thing. We're gonna reproduce some of those things this year, but not all of them.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a great combination of competition, support, people stretching themselves beyond their boundaries, typically learning something new as an adult, which it's harder to do, right?
It is hard to do.
So I think we'll see a lot of those elements in this effort as well. So.
Awesome. One of my favorite parts of that evening, Rich, is these guys bring on some folks to do testimonials of the impact the Y has made in their lives. And, we had one woman talk about the swimming program over in Missaukee County. We've had folks talk about weight loss and their health and their confidence and their new life, and how grateful they are to the Y for bringing them health in their lives. Can you talk about that a little bit, Mike?
Yeah, and I think, with what's gone on this year, we heard from people and heard their stories in a different way once the Y wasn't available in a physical way at all for 3 months. We were, our doors were closed minus the exception of daycare for 3 months. And people everyone's just kind of shocked at first of everything in the world. And then after it became a little longer, we're hearing from people of, when are you going to be open? I really need this. I'm missing that. And we have one gentleman that he was in a accident years ago and is now in a wheelchair.
Okay.
He comes to the pool every single day because it's the only environment he can really move in his lower body.
Wow.
And is a big part of his health and circulation. And, the weeks before we were able to open, he was calling saying, like, I'm having significant health issues. I got to get in a pool.
Right.
And no pools were allowed to be open. And luckily within, I think, a week or two after he was really desperately calling us, we were able to open. So things like that are just huge. And
changed his life.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And, we had changed how we ran the pool. You have to sign up, and he's got his time that he's there like clockwork. I tell the time of day by him because he's got to be there every day
sure.
And do his thing. So
Sure. I chuckle, Rich, because my kids went to Y daycare, and just so you know, you cannot send in ho-hos and Twinkies and Katy cakes and cookies. That is a no bueno at the Y. Mm-hmm. They don't like that.
Yeah.
You got to keep it healthy, don't
That's
you, Mike?
right. Yeah.
Tell us about funding at the Y, fundraising at the Y. You handed me a letter because, of course, we sponsor the Y. How's the money situation over there?
Yeah, so we've definitely taken a hit with membership and program revenue.
Sure.
But that being said, a lot of our members have stuck with us, even though they're not walking through the door. They're still paying their membership dues.
Awesome.
And haven't stopped just because they know the things we're doing to respond and support in the community. And that's gone a long ways. That buys us time to get back to normal. And that's how, as the leader, I'm really looking at things financially now. Like, we just got to buy ourselves time until we can get back to normal with the flow we can have in the building.
Ramp everything back up.
Yeah.
So several nonprofits, we've talked to Amy Gibbs on the show, Doreen Lance on the show, of course, Pat Goggin, have recalibrated the way they fundraise and some of their programming. Can you tell us about that side of the wire? What are you doing differently now?
We're about to really get into that season. For us is really the last quarter of the year when we really start fundraising. I think a lot of the efforts and the way we go about it will be the same. I think it'll just be more virtual meetings or more creative ways to connect with people, and really telling the story of how we're adapting, how we're looking for new emerging needs and what we're doing in those areas, just to show, we're still relevant even though we can't gather the way that we typically did in the past, and we're still serving the community in some different ways, and that's what needs support. But we've been very thankful. We had secured annual sponsors on a calendar year basis, right? So, and they can pay those out over the year, and we've only been 3 months in when, we closed the doors and everything kind of fell apart. And it's like, is everyone gonna, maintain
their sponsorship, right?
Maintain their commitment? Everybody has.
Good.
And that just to me is a testament of just how great our businesses are in our community, and what we've done at the Y to prove our worth. And we went into action right away to say, we're not just closing the doors and waiting for this thing to blow over. We're gonna do some new things right away.
Affirmation.
Do what we can. So yeah.
Community affirmation. And they say if you build it, they will come, and if you build it well, they will stay.
Yes.
And that's what you've done, Mike, you and Dan Smith.
You mentioned something about emerging needs. Where do you go and who do you talk to find out what those emerging needs are?
Yeah, I mean, we've always tried to work that way, but obviously things rapidly changed and suddenly. And I'll be honest, for a few months, every nonprofit, we're all talking to each other. We're talking about that and talking to those that serve our marginalized people in the community. Everyone's just kind of with their hands out going, we don't really know yet because we can't get to our people, right? We can't face-to-face them, and those virtual things haven't hit. Where I really think that's solidified is our senior population that are the most vulnerable and do not have access or not. Their life not accustomed to accessing things through technology.
Right.
They can't adapt to these virtual things well. So
I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. So actually a great collaboration of nonprofits, Amy Gibbs brought to our attention the need for grocery shopping for seniors, and she was helping out some folks, and then she started getting overwhelmed with that. So then we got involved, and then we started working with Council on Aging, and 5 months later, we are still shopping for seniors through Council on Aging. So folks that they're in their clientele, and it helps them and their staff because they still have to go in and do home health care, but they don't want to send those home health care workers to the grocery store regularly.
Right.
So we're kind of divided those staff out and using Y staff to do the grocery shopping, and sometimes on delivery, some not. So that was a thing that all of a sudden, and one great thing about our staff is the person who now is doing the most grocery shopping is someone who became employed with us to be a lifeguard and a swim lesson instructor.
Oh, perfect.
And now she's grocery shopping 6 hours a week for seniors because she cares about the mission. She cares about the community. It's not just a job.
Yeah, she changed lanes and met a need.
And our staff and volunteers did that without question, almost across the board.
Awesome. It says a lot about the nonprofit community in Cadillac. No one gets territorial. You all, you're on this team together, this coalition where you all talk about best practices and how you've reworked your programming to meet the needs of the community during a pandemic. But, even Dancing with the Y Stars is actually directed by Pat Goggin, who runs the United Way. Some nonprofits would look at another as a potential threat for fundraising or as a competitor. And we see the opposite in Cadillac, and that is unique.
Yeah, and I think that collectively helps us all be more successful.
Absolutely.
So.
And I think community people that are getting ready, community leaders and potential donors see that and appreciate it.
Yeah.
And respect you folks for it.
Yeah, that's very important.
We're going to take a break right now, and we're going to continue with our second half of our program with Mike Kelso, Executive Director of the Cadillac Area YMCA. Cadillac Unscripted is sponsored by our friends at Independent Bank as well as RE/MAX Central. Mary Ann Quist back in a moment on 107.9 CDY. Buying a home is still the great American dream. And yes, it can be an intimidating process, but you can rest assured and have confidence when the professionals from RE/MAX Central are in your corner to guide you through it. Mary Ann Quist of RE/MAX Central has helped hundreds of home buyers in and around the Cadillac area navigate the process over the years, and she's ready to help you too. From start to finish, from finding a home to submitting an offer, to understanding the purchase agreement, to inspections, surveys, and appraisals, to the time when you finally sit down and sign those closing documents, Marianne will be there. When you're ready to buy, talk to Marianne Quist at RE/MAX Central. See her listings at teamquist.com. Second part of Cadillac Unscripted on 107.9 CDY, Saturday morning chat, local chat. We always try to concentrate on good things that are going on in the community. And Cadillac Unscripted over the last 9 months has concentrated a lot on nonprofits and the events, the Herculean efforts that go on in Cadillac to try and serve people. And we're doing that again this morning with Mike Kelso, Executive Director of the Cadillac Area YMCA.
Right.
What do you have for us, Katy?
Well, first, I want to get into the dates of Dancing with the Y-Stars. I'm sure folks heard before that it's going to be virtual this year. They've got a plan. It's called Dancing with Myself. Dancing by myself or Dancing with myself, Mike?
With myself. Dancing
with myself. Everyone knows the song. So, Mike, what are the dates surrounding that so folks have something to look forward to?
Yeah, so it's all going to be released the first week of November. I think it's the 2nd through the 7th.
Okay, and then it wraps up on the 7th.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so there's a finite time that folks can get in and vote.
They can vote the week before and the week after. So we'll have a 3-week window of voting, but the videos will be released that week of first week in November.
And are there judges involved this year?
Not this year.
Okay,
no,
it's
no.
all of the vote.
Yeah.
It's all the people's choice.
It's all the people's choice. Yep.
Okay, so much different formatting than what we've seen in the past. Okay, so one of my favorite questions for nonprofit directors is, if money were no object, where would Mike take the Cadillac YMCA?
Ooh, that's always a tough one. I could talk forever on it. I think the needs that I've always felt were there in our community, and honestly what we've gone through the last 6 months solidified that, is we could use more child care center space. So I'd be building on that. We could use more teen center space and to create some more specialized program for youth after school, because we just have a general hangout area.
Right.
But if we could have a classroom, a lab, where we could focus certain clubs and activities around different groups, that would be huge.
And this is a passion project for you, because that was your job before you became the executive director, right?
Yeah, I mean, before I was involved in everything directly, programmatically directing, except for probably aquatics and childcare, but teens and sports and camp, yeah.
Do you know how much patience you have to run Camp Torrenta and to run teens?
I spend every day in a room with 55 digital media production students who are juniors and seniors, and I think I might have a little bit of an idea.
What about campers?
That's a little different.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you, you have to be, the man's a saint. Okay, that's what we're going to say.
Think of a classroom with no walls.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
really,
That would be a no for me. But what does that price tag look like?
Yeah, I mean, that's
$1 million?
Yeah, that's millions or million. You can spend $1 million really quick when you start talking bricks and mortar in a commercial building. But yeah, I mean, those spaces aren't too big, because they're not like a gym or a pool. Those are high dollar items that, we're good with. So yeah, I think just on a need basis, I think those are two things that need more facility in our community.
So I don't know if all of our listeners know this, but there is a teen program at the Y that has been so impactful in terms of turning kids around, maybe kids that were going the wrong way. And these guys bring in mentors who have been to the wrong side of the tracks and bounced back.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about that, Mike?
Yeah, our Teen Impact program.
Yes.
And that was a group we were really concerned about when school stopped and the Y stopped. But we said, let's try to keep going virtually with them. And I'll be honest, I don't know if they'll really, have the ability to do that or put in the effort to do that, because they need a lot of support. And they did, and did consistently. And we're going to get it back in person here pretty soon. And I think why they did, because we already had a good relationship established with them and their facilitators and mentors, and they valued that relationship enough to go through the effort to change how they maintain that the youth did. They had to be a part of that,
right?
Maintain that. So that made me proud of our effort and our staff who do that. So that was a big
So let me ask you, Mike. Rich has these kids that graduate from high school that are still in communication with him, that go into radio and broadcasting and sound, and that he still keeps tabs on, and they communicate with Rich, and they're dear friends, and he's still a mentor. When these kids graduate from Teen Impact, do they stay in touch with their mentors still?
Yeah, so Teen Impact is basically a year experience.
Okay.
But then we have Teen Impact Phase 2, which kind of becomes an alumni group of those who graduated Phase 1. And they very often come back like once a week and be our peer mentors to the newer participants of Teen Impact. And we'll see them all the way, through high school. And then they, typically move on. And then we still hear from them from time to time. It's interesting. Sometimes you don't see that the life lessons and the things they're getting through in their high school years
until later.
It's not often, but it's awesome when it happens. When I run into someone in their early 20s that was in Teen Impact, and they'll say, "Yeah, all that stuff you were telling us, I figured out why you were telling us that when I went out and hit the real world, And I tell them a lot, like some of them have just made some bad choices or think it's just going to be fine once the adults leave them alone, they get out of school. And I'm like, the world's going to get a lot less forgiving when you hit 18. So let's get prepared for that now. And then they're like, true? Oh, yeah, now I know what you're talking about. And I've applied some of those things. So that's really rewarding when that happens for sure.
I will tell you, it is the best thing to have someone who graduated 7 years ago to write me and say, can you write me a recommendation?
Yeah, I love
or
that.
Yep. Will you help me with my resume? Will you? Absolutely.
Right? Yes.
Once you enroll or you're part of something like Teen Impact or what I do, you have someone in your corner for pretty much the rest of your life.
Yep.
Yes.
And it's nice to be in that role.
Oh, wow.
Well, we'll get that same experience with our camp counselors who are typically 18, 19, 20 years old. And now, I started with some of the Camp Trena ones 16 years ago. So they're getting older now, and seeing them through social media when they come back to the community if they've moved away and where they've gone in their careers. We've got some folks that have developed some really great careers and a lot of human services helping others, and they relate that back to their experience being a camp counselor and what they learned from helping people there. So that's a great thing to be a part of.
You gave
them
a toolbox, Mike, to
yeah.
go out into the world with, and so do you. So do you.
Yep, that's the most rewarding part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Let's circle back and talk about the event. And before you go, I know you probably want to thank your videographers.
Yes.
Montage Media, who are wonderful. And I will tell you, we have had Jeff Boss in our classroom because he's right into what our kids are into. And Jeff is, those Boss brothers are self-taught.
Oh, is that
they
right?
never went to any school for this. They are self-taught.
No
Which
kidding.
is incredible because the work they do, it stands right up there with some of the best that you can see.
That's
and so
amazing.
you guys are blessed to have the bosses in your corner for this event.
Yeah, Craig was a dancer in the event last year, and he's going to shoot our promo video next week that we'll release kind of mid-October that I think will...
That's going to be the teaser?
Yes, the teaser video. Mm-hmm. That's going to acknowledge the past, give a hint of what the future is, and intrigue people and entertain people, and hopefully create a little buzz. So, and they're just so good. They're so creative, and they push the envelope. They're always trying new things. They did a shoot of a destruction of some structure in the water. Like that had to be a challenging thing to do.
Yes, out in Lake Huron off of Au Gres. I saw that video.
Wow.
Yes,
drones and boats and all that, and they
how
do
exciting!
Some great things,
I mean, two local guys doing this.
So the teaser video, are we going to see faces, or are they going to be the backs of people where we're going to find out who's participating, or is it going to be more of an appetizer?
So we're going to present the familiar a bit. So our very familiar hosts, Katy, Huckle, and Dan Elta, will be featured. And then there'll be another player involved to kind of help setting the scene and helping us transition the idea to what we're doing.
That one's a secret.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're looking at mid-October when that gets unleashed?
Yes. Yeah, we're going to shoot next week and give Craig a little time to edit, and we'll get that out there.
We need dancers to throw their hat in the ring, don't we, Mike? We do.
Okay.
Yep.
What's the best way for folks to
get a hold of you if they want to be a part of it?
Yeah, so call the Y, stop by the Y, shoot me an email. All that's on our website, CadillacAreaYMCA.org. Be happy to lay out the details and let you know how anybody could help with that endeavor or anything else. So.
And this is interesting because those who might have performance anxiety of being in front of a crowd.
Oh, wow.
This is totally different this year.
Touché.
Yeah, it's funny. I think we probably have some of our people that would be happy to be on stage and live, but would never do social media. But I think there's probably more people
I think so.
The other
that
way.
would do the social media. And it's a 30 to 45 second. We want 30 to 45 second little dance TikTok type things. So it's not a big production. Like our live show, I mean, they rehearse all summer. They put in hours. They put in a lot of work. You can put a lot of work and time into this too, but you can also, do some costumes in fun locations and be silly, and it'll be a great thing. So.
You want to know, Mike, now that you say that, I know Pat has gotten Pat's the recruiter. Pat Goggins, the recruiter of dancers.
He's on our committee.
One of them, and probably the most successful recruiter of dancers. He uses all kinds of tactics.
Because who can say no to Pat
Nobody.
Goggins?
I can't.
Right.
I can't. But so... I know for a fact that Pat has talked to folks that have said, not this year, I'm too busy, I just started a company, I just had a baby, I'm too, so now we've got...
The time commitment won't be as great.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. And then, Mike, the other thing I wanted to say, I know a little bit about this from experience, but if there's a donor out there in our audience that is passionate about X, maybe it's working out, or passionate about nutrition in children, or passionate about elders, they can call you and they can donor designate where their money goes at the Y. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
We typically sit down and have a conversation like, what are you passionate about?
Right.
And I say, here's what we're doing that I think you're passionate about. Or if it isn't something we're doing and I see it as a need in the community and logistically possible to address, then we talk about that. And are we going to start something new?
Oh, wow.
And
see?
so, it's one thing I love about working with the Y is we're not in a box. Mm-hmm. We fulfill community needs. You can go to Ys across the country and across the world, and they're doing things you would never imagine that they would, because it may not be a need in our community, but it is a need there, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I don't, it's not everybody sells the same thing or does the same thing in every Y community. Right. It's about needs and fulfilling needs. So
and meeting the people,
yeah,
meeting their needs, right? Yep. Which you are doing very well. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Dillon would be proud, I think.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And I know Dan Smith's proud of the work you're doing too. It was a warm handoff. It wasn't an ice water handoff here with these two gentlemen who remain very close friends. We had a Y conference and said, you can come and stay in my room so that your community doesn't have to pay your Y dues to come to this. And they're still working together as a team, and Dan's halfway across the country. So
yeah, we're texting, calling, emailing pretty regular. So
you tell him to stay out of trouble.
Yeah, I can't be that responsible from that far away, but I try. So
I love it.
It's been a pleasure to have you on the show again. So let's talk about the timeline one more time. Teaser video coming out mid-October?
Yes.
And then we start revealing the dancers...
First week in November.
Yes.
I want to throw out a challenge to our industry CEOs, industry and manufacturing CEOs. I want to see these guys. I want to see these guys dancing.
See, it's very interesting because these are people who generally like to hide in the shadows.
Right.
We can extend an invitation all day long to the CEOs and the HR people and the plant managers. And
how about the mayor?
And they so
she's danced in it before. We want to see the mayor again. We want to see Mr. Filkins. We want to see Tanya Smith. Let's get it. Let's see Jen Brown.
She's throwing it down, folks.
It's the gauntlet.
Yeah.
Thanks for being with us, Mike.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate being here.
We will do it again. Have another half hour of chat next Saturday morning at 8:30 on 107.9 CDY. Cadillac Unscripted is brought to you by Independent Bank and Marianne Quist of RE/MAX Central. Same time, same station next week, 107.9 CDY.